I bought this water flood damaged BMW M135i xDrive from a Copart salvage auction. And as you would expect from a water flood damaged car, it's got a seized engine, which of course is a bit of a gamble, but I think I can fix it. It's a huge job and I've got lots to do. I need to drop the exhaust, get the heat shields off so I can get to the prop shaft, maybe even drop the front suspension and subframe. Basically, I'm just going to get as far as I can in this video. So with that said, let's go ahead and get back to the action. Okay, so here we are at the back of the car, and this thing, it goes from the jacking point here to near the diff, across the back, and then to the other jacking point at the far side. So it's a 18mm socket here, and I expect these to be tight, and they are. I've got my strong bar on it. It should spin out pretty easy now. I'm just going to do this one that's in the middle near the diff now, once I've got this bolt out. It's really filthy under here, probably from driving through the flood water. Lots of dirt, that's all dropping on your head all the time. Oh, ow. So this one's the driver's side, rear jacking point. Well, anyway, torsion bar bolt. Okay, so this is the last one of the 4. So I expect this bar to come down now. Wow, that's a long bolt, isn't it? Jeez. Okay, there we go. And then there's these 2 cross supports about near the middle of the car that need to be removed. Looks like they're all Torx fittings. It's only a bit of tin, this, so I don't know what BMW thinks it's actually doing. Honestly, it's like the flimsiest thing. So this one looks heavier duty, so I imagine it might be doing something at least. And there's 6 bolts here, so they're taking it more seriously. Well, it might be all these little things that make the car handle better than the last version of the 1 Series. Who knows? It's all about body rigidity, isn't it? Yeah, that's one of them. Kind of a big fat dome-headed screw, that. No insult intended. Have to be careful these days with being PC about your mechanical fasteners. Oops. Okay, this one removed. Pop the screws back in. Just less screws to put into my part box. I just have dozens of part box, it seems, and they still all get full. Okay, so it's time to get the exhaust off. We're at the engine side. So this is the clamp that comes, you know, just down from the exhaust manifold. And this is just a little V clamp on the exhaust here. Just one bolt at the bottom. All this other stuff, that's not important at the moment because it's on the engine side, although I think it'll have to be disconnected in a bit because this little stub of exhaust is going to come out with the engine. So on the face of it, this seems like a really good clamp because it's just got the 1 bolt. What it means is it doesn't come apart in 2 pieces. So now it's loose, as you can see, but it's not releasing here. And it's really hard to get it to spring apart. I'm just seeing if I can force it the other side of this. See, I spoke too soon when I said it was a really good clamp, didn't I? Wow, what a pain. Now how can I make that come further apart? Any ideas? Honestly, the 2-piece ones, they're like a little clamshell, so it'd be done by now. That's got it. Wow, what a pain, huh? Whew. Look forward to getting that back on, huh? So at the back of the car now, and on one of the tailpipes, there's this thing, a little actuator. I think it's for the active exhaust. And I just need to disconnect this electrical connector to it. So these cars have quite a large exhaust back box. It runs all the way across the back, and then it has twin pipe. And so there's a hanger either side, but there's also a central hanger. So when I undo that, it shouldn't fall or anything. So it's just a 13mm up in there. I'll be honest, I don't really like that this big central back box because you see it from the back of the car, and I think it doesn't really look good, you know. That's one. Oh, hold on a sec. Oh, it's dropping down more than I thought. I think that's okay for a sec because I've just put that block in there which is supporting it a little bit. But it's going to be tricky to lift down. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, support it in some way. So I've got these wheels back here anyway. Let's get a block on. If I'm lucky, if the height will be just right. It's not just right. That's that supported. So I mentioned that there was a central hanger and it's just here. So let's see how that comes undone. So I just undid the middle hanger. Look at the huge bolt that was up there. That's the only thing still holding the exhaust on as far as I can tell. But we've got it braced at the back, and I know it probably looked a bit Heath Robinson, but it's also braced at the front. And so I'm just going to wiggle this a bit and see if it drops down. But it shouldn't fall on me. Famous last words, huh? It's always fun with exhaust, isn't it? That's weird. It's weird how it's not dropping. It's definitely off. So I got it wrong. I don't mind admitting it when I get something wrong. That big long bolt, that's part of the suspension subframe or whatever, so just undoing it didn't mean this hanger was loose. And actually you can't unbolt this middle hanger, so that has to be pushed through that pin, through the rubber piece, and they can be a pain, these, which is why it's always better unbolting the bracket if you can. But what I do whenever I'm tackling one of these is get some silicone spray, because that'll make the metal pin slide through the rubber more easily. And then just see if you can get it started with some grips. So get on the end of the pin and just see if you can get it started, you know, pushing through the rubber. There you go, you see I've got it started there. A bit more spray. Now see if I can just wedge it along. There we go. So that's how to do that type of fitting. Hope you were taking note. So I mentioned that it was supported at the front, and I'm just going to drop it down one block. There we go. And at the front it slides in the downpipe about 2 inches. So I slide that out, put it down there, and now I can make a similar adjustment at the back to see if the back will drop down. So don't give up the day job and start working for quick fit, right? Oh, there's a lot of weight here now. Okay, so you probably see that actuator's just catching on the inside of the bumper, and that's what's holding it up at the back now. So what I actually need to do is slide the exhaust forward a bit, but because it's off at the front, there is room for me to slide it forward a bit. So I'm just going to take the weight, slide it forward, yeah, just a little bit. At some point you have to bite the bullet, so I'm going to knock this block out of the way back here. So you can see the exhaust is off at the back, which means at the front I can kick this block out the rest of the way. So I'm just going to tap these exhaust tips off because I don't want to risk them getting scraped on the floor. I can just keep them safe. Just going to drag this out now. Just need to turn this sideways. Never seen like such a big one-piece exhaust before. Wow, huh? So I don't have room for this in the garage, so I need to hide it somewhere where the scrap guys can't find it. So getting that exhaust off all in one big long piece all the way from the downpipe was quite a mission for just one person on their own. But I've got it done and we can move on to the next stage, which is getting the front and rear heat shields off. And the end goal is to get to the prop shaft, because with this car being four-wheel drive, we have to drop the prop shaft and then we'll have to disengage the drive to the front wheels too before we can lift the engine and transmission out as a job lot. So let's do the front one first because it overlaps onto the back one, and it should be fast and easy because we're just going to spin them out with this driver. All 8mm by the looks of it. Just a few sneaky ones here and there. Getting some more dirt dropped on my head, which is always nice. There's always a sneaky one. Oh, sneaky too. Couldn't see them because they're right above my head. Alright, no excuses, I found a third one. Oh, it hit me right on the nose then. Ow. Okay, so that's great because now we can see the prop shaft. So this here is my parts shed. So I don't have enough room in the garage for all the stuff I'm getting off of that car, and if you struggle for space too, as long as you've got a bit of a side garden or a decent back garden, just stick a shed in it. Let's have a look and see what's in there. I'm around here for a reason, by the way, because as you can see, I've got the heat shields to put in. But what I've realized is I keep shoving more and more things in the parts shed. And if you look at the back in there, then that's where my engine hoist is. So if I just keep shoving parts in front of it, eventually I'm gonna have to get them all out to get the engine hoist. So I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I'm getting excited this engine's gonna come out soon. So I'm gonna drag that engine hoist out, and then it gives more room in the parts shed for the parts that come off the car. Spare wheel off my Porsche 914, need that out. Plastic wrap. Another couple of Porsche 914 parts. As you can see, it's not just the M135i that I've been storing parts for. Okay, well here it is, ready for when it's needed. Let's get back to work so that we can be using it soon. So next up is a bit that I'm not really looking forward to, if I'm honest, which is removal of the prop shaft. And the reason I'm not looking forward to it is the instructions are quite complicated, and every step of the way it's putting up these quite scary warning messages. For example, this one says, non-observance of the removal and installation guidelines may cause severe damage to the transfer box. And if we scroll further up, there's another that says, damage to propeller shaft during removal. And further up from that, non-observance of removal guidelines may cause severe damage to the rear differential. So clearly there's a lot that can go wrong. I haven't done lots of prop shafts before. I've done literally one or two, dropping them out for various reasons, and they were pretty straightforward. Now, I've spent quite a bit of time looking under this car at the prop shaft. I didn't film it all because the last thing you want is an hour of me scratching my head under the car. So I think I know how to do it now, but it's more complex than a standard prop shaft. Every step of the way the technical guide's saying you need this special tool and that special tool, and yes, sometimes you do need the special tool, and a lot of the times it's just something, it's a special spanner or something, and you can make do with something else. So this is the prop shaft here, looking from the engine side towards the back of the car in the distance there. And at the back of the car where the diff is, and in a while we'll undo these silver ones, and then that'll allow the back part of this prop shaft to come loose from the diff. Now there's a centre bearing behind you which we'll have a look at next, but as you can imagine, as we drop that down, a lot of weight is going to go on other components further upstream, and if you're not careful, the next stop is the transfer box on the back of the gearbox, and if you start tilting this down and putting a lot of load on that, I think that's when it can say you can damage the transfer box. In fact, let's just spin you guys around, and then it enables you to maintain your orientation a little bit. Just look up a bit, guys. Now this is the center bearing I was talking about. We have to drop down those bolts in order to allow the prop shaft to move forward, so that we can disconnect it from the diff at the back, so this won't be taking any weight anymore. And now if we just move a little bit further around, this is a really strange arrangement that I just haven't seen before. I don't really know what this thing does, but this here, this is the nut that you turn to unscrew the prop shaft from the transfer box. But inside here it's all rubber, and so it's obviously some kind of anti-vibration mount or coupling. And because it is rubber in there, as you can imagine, if this prop shaft dropped down at the back, then that could try to tilt, it could strain and damage that. So this is the location of special tool number 1. So there's something that they sell which is like a sleeve, and it effectively encases and clamps all this. It keeps this prop shaft nice and rigid. So let me show you what I've made. So I just had this bit of steel kicking around, and can you see how I've made it a bit wider there? That fits onto the bigger part. So if I pop that up on top, you'll kind of see how that's going to sit. Something like that. But can you see how it's tilted down? So it would be like that. I made these blocks of wood and I made sure I got that thickness just right, so that now if I pop that in at this side, but then that matches up the height, and then I've got another one that matches it at the back. So that's fine, but now we need a way of clamping that really nice and rigid. So for about 10 quid I bought this pack of really strong stainless steel Jubilee clamps. So what I'm going to do is just start getting these ready. You can see I've still got quite a lot of slack to take up. So I've got about 6 of these, and I'll skip ahead so that you don't have to watch me doing them all. Okay, voila, the power of editing. So what I've got now is the bottom piece, which is the same as the top one. I'm just going to thread that in. I'm hoping I haven't made any of these clamps too tight. Maybe that end one, just a little bit. Oh no, I've got it. And then this other packing piece goes in at this side. I'm not going to do these up with the power tool all the way because I like a bit more feel. So I'll just take the slack up, I think. And then I'll just do this end one the same. Okay, I'm going to do the final touches just with a screwdriver because I don't want to strip out these Jubilee clips, and the screwdriver allows me to feel a little bit more of what's going on. That feels enough. Okay, so later on in the process of removing this prop shaft, I know that we're going to be spinning that nut, which means the shaft's going to be spinning. And so these trailing ends, they're no good, because one of the reasons I went with this design is because it's so compact. I'm going to cut off all these tails because there's just a risk of them catching on something. So I'll just have some tin snips. It's a bit awkward, as you probably noticed. Okay, so be honest with me, it's not as Heath Robinson as you feared, is it? This is really thick steel here. So with that and the packing pieces and 6 clamps means this should be super rigid now. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I need to support the prop shaft front and rear, so I'm going to move this jacking beam down to the back underneath the diff, and then I'll be able to use a jack and a little V-block on it to support the back part of the prop shaft. And then I'm going to do something similar at the front, but I'll spin the camera around for that. So that's the first of 2 jacks that I'm going to use for this. So this one's my second jacking beam. It's already in place, thankfully, so no lifting required. Just going to slide it down. And that's my second jack. I've got a concern this jack might not quite go high enough, but we'll see. And what I'm going to do is just use the spanner. Only has to support it, you see. Oh yeah, it's going to do it, isn't it? Okay, so this is my V block, and the idea is that because it's V'd, it's really good for holding round shafts and things, so it'll go onto the prop shaft like that. Unfortunately, these notches are just a little bit small, so it's a little bit unstable, but that's not too bad. Now, I've been accused of being a little bit too detail orientated in the past, but from my experience, lack of attention to detail gets you in trouble, not too much. Although I will be honest, too much attention to detail does slow you down. I digress. What I want to do is secure this V-block nice and tight so it doesn't fall off. And you guessed it, I'm going to use 2, because one could break, right? And because I know this V-block's going to be pushing against the bottom of this prop shaft, and the prop shaft is going to be rotating, I've just got a little bit of grease for here. No laughing at the back. I think that this grease will stop the prop shaft from getting marked, and it'll also make it rotate more easily. No laughing at the back. So I'm going to scoot it back just a little bit. I think about there, don't you? Yep. Now I only want to just touch on this. I don't want to be lifting it, just supporting it. Yeah, and so here you can see I've got the second one set up exactly the same at the back of the car. Now that the prop shaft's all supported, then the next step is to loosen off this centre bearing. And there's just a bolt either side, and it's 13mm. And they're not very tight at all, which is good. So I'll have to trust in my jacks and my special tool to hold this prop shaft as it should be. Okay, so you can see that's just floating now. So with the centre bearing bolts undone, then the next step is to go back to the diff that shamrock type coupling, but it calls for a BMW special tool, which from all my working out is just a 50mm spanner with a long bar on it to give you extra leverage. Literally, I just crawled out from underneath the car and Karen popped through 2 boxes from Amazon, so I might as well get these open straight away and you can see what I bought. It's always awkward when you buy a tool especially for a job, because you end up not using it again. But I'm hoping these will come in handy again. There we go, 50mm. Now, I didn't just choose this at random. Obviously I measured and I knew what size I needed, but I also wanted it to be just a single-ended spanner, because when you've got an end like this one, then you can slot a bar onto it, you see, and get more leverage, and that's what I wanted to be able to do. So I've actually got 2 of these. The other one's in the other box. Cost about 20 quid each, these, which wasn't too bad because they look like quality items. And don't worry, I did capture it on the spreadsheet, so when I do the summing up it at the end of the job and we look at my profit and loss, we'll have 40 quid's worth of spanners on there, amongst a lot of other things. So let's get back under the car and see how we can make this work for us. Okay, so here we are, special tool, 50mm spanner. And what I expect to happen is when I start turning the bolts on the coupling at the back, assuming they're a normal right-hand thread, I'll be undoing them that way, you see. So the prop shaft will turn that way, and this spanner will come up against the underneath of the body, and then it won't allow the prop shaft to turn anymore, and then the bolts will come undone. So the only purpose of this is to hold the prop shaft still while you undo the bolts. So let's head down that way and have a look at the coupling. So I'm just going to take note using this marker pen where these two connect. So the Guido rubber thing, the flange that's actually on the rear diff, and then just a line on the prop shaft. And it doesn't have to be super accurate, because if you were a whole bolt out then it'd be miles off. So you just need to make sure the lines are roughly in the same position. So let's see what size Torx. Always try and get it right first time. I bet you guys do this when you're working on stuff. E14? Yes. Okay. I mean, don't sound surprised. E14? Yeah. Pretty tight. Okay, that's good. No Loctite on the thread, so I must just be a weakling. The only area where I can access easily is just here. Okay, somewhere there. Ooh, one thing to mention is you notice this all spins freely, and that's because the transmission's in neutral. If you try and have the transmission in park and you relied on the transmission to hold the prop shaft still, then I think that what they think is there's a risk of damaging it. So that's why you're relying on the spanner further up near the bearing to hold the prop shaft while you undo these. Okay, let's get it spun round one more time. Okay, so next up I need to lever the coupling apart. So you can see this gap has started to form here. Oh, it's just kind of getting in there and levering a bit. And there we go. Okay, so that's loose now. Hopefully you can just see that this shaft popped out there. So that's the 3 bolts on the rear differential out, and the prop shaft moved forward. And to be honest, that's not what I was talking about when I said the prop shaft looks a little bit tricky. That was very conventional, that type of coupling at the back. It's the one at the front that's a bit tricky. And you effectively unscrew the prop shaft out of the transfer box, put these in the box, and let's have a look at it. Instead of holding in this position, I now start using this spanner to turn the prop shaft, and then I need another spanner at the other end just near the gearbox to hold a similar hex nut up there. So delving in, let's get to where the prop shaft is. So you can just see this prop shaft here, and this is the other hex that I need to hold. So I just reach in there, hold that with a spanner, and I just stop that from rotating at this end. And then the shaft itself, it actually just unscrews. You'd think that there'd be a coupling here and you would undo this, but anyway. Off camera I tried everything to get a spanner onto this hex, and it kept falling off, slipping off, falling off. I just couldn't get the grab onto it that I needed. Honestly, that's just not working. The access is too poor. I think I could persevere and maybe adapt a different tool or access from lots of different areas and see what's going to work best for me, but getting a little bit frustrated with it, and I suspect that later on in the instructions I'll drop that subframe or I'll do something else and I'll think I could have accessed that nut much more easily. I think I have a reasonable expectation I might have the better access later, so let's see, I can always reevaluate it. Okay, so this is feeling like a good time to stop this video because, to be honest, I need to regroup. I know I'm going to have to drop that front subframe and suspension in order to get to the prop shaft. I need to read ahead in the technical manual. Hopefully you're enjoying the work that you're seeing, and if you are, then please give me a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, then please consider subscribing as well. And I'll catch you in the next video where I'm absolutely sure we'll finally get that prop shaft out and the engine out too. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.